Good Monday morning. Welcome to week 7 of the semester. So we are almost exactly halfway through, which is always an exciting time. We're going to get started with our little walkthrough today. If I can get my computer to play along. And I'm going to start, of course, as usual. Let's take a look at the syllabus because, like I said, we're kind of halfway through. This is the final week of readings for short fiction. So this is the final week that you'll have new short stories to read. And then we'll be getting into the novels. So hopefully you've already made a choice for your novel. But if not, this is the week where we're going to really start focusing on that. The other thing that you're going to be doing this week is giving me a first glance at your plan for the short fiction paper. So it's not the paper itself, but we're going to be looking at some sources. We'll go over the assignment, and then you are going to declare your choice of novel on the discussion board this week. Then next week, of course, we'll have the short fiction paper. And then we're kind of going to rinse and repeat with the novel, plan, bibliography, and so on and so forth. After spring break, you are going to be doing a presentation on and a paper on your novel. So this is really the same information doing double duty. And it's a pretty common thing that you see in school and in work, really, where you're gathering information. You may be presenting it in written form, but you're also going to have to talk about it in front of other people. So it's good practice for all kinds of things. But don't worry about that too much yet. I know people see the word presentation and start to get a little freaked out, but I promise you it is going to be a-okay. So let me turn on the student view and we'll go ahead and take a look at this week's module. So for week 7, excuse me, goodness. Our overview, of course, we've got a few more short fiction stories, and we're going to end the week by choosing a full-length novel, if you haven't already, for a paper and presentation. This week, learners will submit a plan for the short fiction papers for some quick feedback before submitting it next week. So you're going to be giving me a heads up on 2 things that will carry us into the coming weeks. So for the learning materials and activities this week, like I said, you do have a couple of stories. Both of these stories are a little bit longer, so there's only 2 this week. The Yellow Wallpaper, which many of you will have read, it's a pretty common story that folks encounter either in high school, or if you took 1102 at Lake Sumter, you may have already taken a look at that story. And then Bartleby the Scrivener. Now, I will say, because they are longer, there is a lot to talk about with those 2 stories. So you may have picked a story already that you think you're going to write your fiction paper about, but these may be excellent choices because not only are they a little bit longer and therefore more to write about, but they also have been written about a lot by professional literary critics. So source finding from the library is not going to be difficult for those 2. And of course, one of the things that you're going to be doing with the fiction this week, the short fiction, is preparing an initial bibliography. I will remind you, of course, and I'm going to actually click on the LibGuide. I'll remind you that in addition to, here's the Yellow Wallpaper, in addition to the story, you have, in this particular case, you have an audio version of it. So for those of you who like to listen to books on tape, that's a great choice. You have a video. I will tell you, the video is it's very interesting, but it does not replace the story. You have a link to a couple of different biographies of Charlotte Perkins Gilman. When you write your paper, you're probably not going to use a lot of biography, although as works of fiction go, Yellow Wallpaper is probably the most likely to need some information about her life. So maybe one of these could become a source in your paper. But, and this is what I kept kind of reminding people about when I was grading the poetry papers, don't forget about this tab on all of the works that we have from the library. They have done a really good job of giving you additional sources that you absolutely can 100% use in your papers. So there are a lot here. Short stories for students and literature in its times, and to a certain degree, short story criticism are more background information, but these can be useful. But there are a full 4 actual hardcore literary critical articles that you can use in your paper for the Yellow Wallpaper. Now, in terms of Bartleby the Scrivener, same thing. You've got the story, and of course, here's how you cite that. You've got 3 different author biographies of Herman Melville, and then you've got just a couple of links here, but there are more sources in the library that you can use about Bartleby the Scrivener. So don't be afraid, of course, to reach out to Miss Rackley if you need some extra help finding sources for your paper. But there are good ones to choose from right there in the LibGuide. So don't forget about that. I reminded a lot of you in your feedback for the poetry paper. But anyway, you, of course, also have, again, and we've gone over these, so I'm not going to open it back up for this, but we've got a list of novels. Kate Chopin's The Awakening, Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Zora Neale Hurston, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Jane Austen's Emma, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. I'm sure you've heard of that one. A Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. If you have seen the Hulu series, you may be familiar with it. I will tell you, the Hulu series goes way beyond what actually happens in the book. So please do not write about the novel thinking that you know it because you've watched the TV show. And then Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. Same thing. There have been some videos made of some of these, some movies made out of some of these. Never rely on the movie. Okay. Or the TV show in this case. We do have some visuals and videos on how to take notes when you're reading a novel, because of course you don't want to have to go back and read the whole thing again to find quotations. So taking active notes while you are reading your novel is going to be super important. There's a video on literary analysis, and then there's an additional video to help review even more MLA. So take a look at that. Don't forget, of course, too, that the librarians are spot on with MLA. So if you need help with the formatting and the citation and you can't get a hold of me, or we can't work together live, you can still get some extra help with that. So here's also some help with the graded assignments. So for the short fiction paper planning, you're going to be picking a story. You're going to write a working thesis that names the story and the aspects you plan to cover. And then you're going to choose quotations, include them in a rough outline of the sections of your paper. You're not married to that, so it can change as you write the paper. And then also, I want to see your MLA works cited list. Again, it could change. You could have more sources, you could take out sources. There's any number of things that could happen with it. But share your list of sources, including the story, and at least 4 potential academic sources. You may have more, you may use a little bit fewer, but that's what you're going to be doing. And then for this week's discussion, you're going to preview and do a little research to help you choose a novel for your upcoming paper and presentation. So let's go over the 2 assignments in more detail. The short paper plan and bibliography, you're going to do it in quiz form, meaning it's just taking the quiz and answering the questions. Some of it you're going to be copying and pasting things that you've created in Word, like the initial bibliography. You should do that in Word so that you have it saved. I already know that when you copy and paste it into the quiz, the hanging indent won't stay, but you should be able to have all the alphabetical order, quotation mark titles versus italics titles, all that should be fine and should stick. So make sure you have that prepared when you start the quiz. There's no time limit, of course. You can take your time with it. In fact, there's nothing that's surprising. I can even go through it with you. So question 1 is, which story have you chosen to focus on for the short fiction paper? This is where you're going to name the story and the aspects you cover in a working thesis statement. Number 2 is where you're going to create the rough outline of the paper, and it even has samples here for you. So you've got like, how would you put the quotes in, that sort of thing. So there's information there for you. You can use any kind of outline form if you want. I like to use just plain bullets because it makes it a little easier. And you do have the ability to create those in the quiz. Here's the bulleted list. You can make it numbered if you prefer, but you can use that to create the list. And then finally is the initial bibliography, including the story and at least 4 potential secondary sources. All entries, of course, are going to be in MLA, and I remind you that hanging indent's not going to stay, which is fine. So that's what the quiz looks like. You can take your time with it. You can resume it. As long as you don't save it and exit, you can actually, as you see there, you can leave it and resume. So take your time with that. And then for the discussion this week, learners will share their thoughts on the novels assigned for the course. Each entry will summarize the background research done to help determine which of the full-length novels the learner will write about and present on for the course. So you're going to make your choice and share your early thoughts. And this has so many typos. I'm going to leave the student view and I'm going to fix it while you watch me, because this is going to drive me crazy. Novels and thoughts about the novel. Okay. All right. Much better. But anyway, that's what you're going to do for the discussion. And of course, there's a little list here of things to include, summarize any research that you've done. And your research for what you want to write about does not have to be fancy research. This can be, I looked up the novels on Wikipedia. This is what I found. That's absolutely fine. Final choice of the novel, of course, on what you're choosing to concentrate on. Write a couple or 3 paragraphs about why you chose it. And then finally, give a little short biography of the novel's author and where it fits into time, history, culture. Is this an American author? Is it a British author? Is this something that was written recently? Is this something that was written, 300 years ago, whatever the case may be. So a little bit about the context and history. You do want to have a bibliography in this because you're going to share the sources that you did, but you also don't have to write everything out. You could use audio or video if you want to talk about it. So feel free to get creative with that. I will show you when you reply to the discussion board, if you want to do a video instead of writing everything out, you can click on this little icon here, and then this will allow you to record or upload media. If you make a video somewhere else, you can upload it there as well. So have some fun with it. I did not use Flip like we did at the beginning, and I'm really glad I didn't, since we're having nothing but problems with Flip this semester. But anyway, so that's what you're going to do for the discussion. Those are your 2 assignments this week, and I'm looking forward to learning more about your thoughts on the fiction, as well as, of course, learning which novel that you're going to pick. It doesn't matter if everybody ends up picking the same novel, although please don't do that. It's going to be very boring for me when I start reading papers. But it's absolutely fine. We're not dividing these up, and different people have to do different ones. So pick the one that's most attractive to you. All right. If you have any questions, of course, reach out at any time. Office hours are on Tuesday night if you need some extra help with that. Mrs. Rackley is our designated librarian, so if you need some help with the bibliography stuff, she's a great resource for that. And I will talk to you next Monday if I do not see you before. I will warn you, I didn't think about this earlier, but I will warn you this week in particular, I am going to be gone. I'm in Orlando, but I'm going to be busy from Wednesday to Sunday. So I will still answer emails. I will still answer texts and things like that, but I may be slower than usual. So just keep that in mind. All right, everybody, take care and have a great week.